How's it going, guys? This is Mike. What I got for you today is my pocket food procurement kit. Uh, this right here is basically a a small kit with traps, fishing gear, snares, snare making materials in here uh, to give you a start. You can just throw this in your pocket and you can go off and scout your area if it's a new area, and while you're doing that, throw out a couple snares and traps. Maybe test the water and see if what kind of fish you got going there. So that's what this is for. Especially, if you got on your first night out into a new place, if you're actually bugging out, obviously you're probably thinking a lot of concealment also, but you're depending on what time you get there, obviously your three things you're worried about is your food, your shelter, and a fire. In most cases. But if you got a little bit of time, maybe you can get 6 traps out or something like that. So just keep that on you when you're running around gathering firewood or something like that. So I'll go ahead and get into this. On the outside, basically what this is, it is a pill bottle. It's a larger than standard size. It's the next size up. It's actually got a nice size diameter there. I don't know if that's 2 inches or 1.5 inches, but nice size because this also doubles as a hand fishing reel. In this first section here, trying to get it off here, but in this first section here, as you can see, it's fishing line. It's 50-pound braided line. Why 50-pound, you say? Isn't that a little overkill? Yeah, probably. But it's also got other uses like cordage and things like that. Being braided, you can tie a nice knot. It doesn't come out as easily as a monofilament that wants to, stay straight. It's also less rigid. So if you do sew something up, it doesn't just feel crappy. Basically, it doesn't have just a big solid ridge of thread as a monofilament would do. Plus, this has a very small diameter size. It doesn't weigh that much, but it has probably the same diameter as 8-pound test monofilament, but it has 42 more pound weight resistance that it can take. So I mean, why not? I mean, that's just my philosophy on the whole thing. But basically, this doubles as a hand reel. You just basically grab it like this. These little inner tube sections here, Ranger bands they like to call them, give you a nice grip even if your hand's wet. But basically you hold it, you can throw it out. I will say that it does not like to spool off by itself. So you're at the very beginning, so you're better off having some metered out, and then throw it like you would a normal hand fishing rod. I think if I made these guides here with black electrical tape, I think it would have slid off better. So if you're going to make one, I would go with the black electrical tape instead of duct tape. at least on the front one. You can do duct tape on the back one, so you have duct tape and electrical tape to use. But from there, we have about a dozen pre-made snares. They're on there. They're ready to go. But on top, there's also just some snare wire, and you'll see how I can take care of that in a minute. But so you can get some snares out with that for small game. And then here I have a cut down section of trail tape, especially if you're going to put out half a dozen or a dozen in a new area. You want to remember where those are at. So until you get used to it, I would leave that up. I know it's a macho thing and nobody wants to use trail tape. You know, I've hunted with many people, and you know, you're basically a puss if you use trail tape. But in this situation, I really don't care what they think. So basically, put this out. You don't want to lose your food. You don't want to lose where you have your trap at. That's just a waste. So once you're familiar, after a day or two of checking your traps, take them down. For security reasons, you don't want other people knowing where you're at. In most cases, I don't want people knowing where I'm at. And then I got some trot line here. You know, you can make snares with this for medium-sized game. You can also make trot lines for fishing. One thing you can do is you could go right across the stream, put a bunch of hooks down, or you could take a section of log or something that floats. You could tie this to it and to the bank. You take liters of the 50-pound braided line there, and you make leaders with them. And with a clove hitch, or however you like to secure your knot, you can just basically make a bunch of leaders and get some hooks in the water. Then you would take another piece of either the trot line or the 50-pound line, fishing line, and tie an anchor to the other end where you have the small section of log. You could also use an empty drink container that you find. You could even use your aluminum water bottle that you have with you. I mean, I wouldn't do that, but I'm just saying that that's an option. So basically, that's what we got going here. Get some hooks in the water, catch some, and get some traps and snares working for you. I got a little bit of black electrical tape. Maybe I should have put that one down there and that one there, eh? But we'll go to the inside. I got a fire making kit here. This is in the top section is char from cattail. It's cattail char. I hope to make a video soon about the differences between the different chars and what works best, what gives you a better coal. But this gives you a very fat coal. You know, 10 times bigger than what a piece of char cloth will give you. It just gets bigger and bigger, and it lights just as easy. And hopefully you can find cattails anywhere to just, you know, after a while, what are you going to do? Start to get char cloth. What are you going to do? Cut your bandanas up, cut your t-shirt, your pants. You know, you don't want to go there. So basically, you should try some different char materials, and cattail is awesome. Also, I got a piece of jute twine in here in the middle to make a bird's nest. and it's a waxed piece of jute twine. But also jute twine will also make an awesome char. And then in the end here, just in case I need to have an extended fire, small flame in case I have wet material or something, I have a Vaseline impregnated cotton ball. This right here is black electrical tape. It is my seal. Seal gives you a nice seal on there because these are water resistant, but they're not waterproof really. But now it is waterproof with your seal. Another way that you can do that is just take your electrical tape, put it down in layers until you have the whole thing covered, and then cut it around the edge, and then you would have a seal inside. Inside here I have freeze-dried mealworms. These mealworms, you can get them at pet supply stores or pet stores themselves because they feed them to reptiles. They're about 1 inch long. Some of them are over 1 inch. Basically, you have bait with you when you get to your spot. You don't have to exert energy digging up things or trying to catch something and hope to find some bait. You have it with you. Basically, you just need to rehydrate it. You just hold it in your hand, put it under the water real quick where you're fishing, pull it out. No more than 5 or 10 seconds, and the outer layer is already nice and pliable again. And then you can just take a hook. The inside is hollow. Just feed it up through, and you got a nice piece of bait. They do work well. I will also say they're full of protein. If you had to eat a couple, if it got down to it because you weren't catching anything, they're full of protein. There's not a lot of them. I would rather use them for bait for sure, but they're very nutty tasting. They're not bad at all. I mean, I was a little intimidated about eating a worm, but it wasn't bad at all. I've actually eaten a couple of them just to aggravate my wife. I got a bobber in here, just a small trout bobber. I have my little fishing lures. There's some beetle spins in here. I love beetle spins. They're very good for panfish. I think in a survival situation, based in my area anyway, I'd probably have to go for panfish. But you can catch pike, bass, and whatnot on these. If it gets too big, it will bend your hook. But the smaller pike and bass, you can take those easily. But I got assorted hooks. I do have some bigger ones. But I have some replacements. If you start catching pike, they destroy them very quickly. But I also have just a couple odds and ends in there. I have a treble hook, a nice big treble hook in here. I don't know if you can see that treble hook, but for survival fishing, basically everything I'm showing you here is illegal at the moment in our current, in my state anyway, and in probably most states. You're not allowed to snare. You're not allowed to make primitive traps. But I'm showing you these things, telling you what I would do if it got ugly. But basically, if you want a viable option of catching fish, just like you would use a spear, you can snag fish with a treble hook like this. The easiest way to do it is to take some of these bigger weights and attach them to the hook themselves, or right above the hook onto the line. So that's your fulcrum, that's your heavy spot, and you throw it out above the fish, and then when you get to the fish, you jerk it. Or you throw it out and the fish swims by and you jerk it upwards. But that works well in trout streams for catching fish in a very shallow water. A lot of times you see those trout and they're so full on spawn that they just don't eat, won't take your hook. You can easily take them by snagging, but once again, illegal. What I have here is more bait. This is peanut butter. Just 2 little things of peanut butter. And these are used for your squirrel snares. These are used for your snares and some of your traps. The nice thing about peanut butter, it's a great attractant. It's a nut. It smells nutty. But it's oil based, and so it doesn't dry out as quickly, so it wafts out a lot more scent than a water-based attractant would, which would dry up very quickly and maybe work again when it rains. But this one is going to just keep on keeping on. It's very good for squirrels and mice and what small animals that you're trying to get. You know, you can get a raccoon to come to that. It's just such a great attractant. I got a small flashlight here. I got a small candle. I got a mini type multi-tool here, especially for your traps. For my snares here, some of them, a lot of this is just spooled on wire, and I might have to make some up while I'm out there, or adjust some to a certain length or whatnot. It's good to have a pair of wire cutters and a pair of pliers to twist that stuff. Makes it a lot more efficient and fast, and you know what I mean, it just makes it a lot better that way. I have a ferro rod here in conjunction with the knife blade or the file blade on here. I can make sparks to get my fire going, and the jute twine and the cattail fluff works great with this. I have some iodine tablets. Here. I usually keep iodine neutralizer in with mine, but this one is just straight iodine. So you're gonna have to deal with the harsh taste. If I had to, you could probably take a half of. This is probably 3/4 of a cup. If you had to, you could dunk this in the water, put a half of one of these tablets in here, wait 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, and you could drink it. So you do have something on hand for a container to drink. And then lastly in here, I got a nice chunk of aluminum foil. You could also boil water if you had to, or you could wrap your fish up in it and cook you some fish and not have ashes in it. So basically that's this small little kit. There's a lot of options in there. You got fire, you got water, you got a little bit of everything, and obviously you could get a shelter going with all the cordage you have here. So it's just a nice little kit that I thought up, and I thought it would supplement some of my other kits rather well. So that's it. I really appreciate it, guys.